My guest today is writer, director, and actor Dan Abramovici, who began his career as an actor, but most recently on projects such as Sofia Coppola's Priscilla, HBO's Jane, and FX's What We Do in the Shadows, and even CBS's Star Trek Discovery. Now, Dan sold his first feature film, the comedy Ben's at Home, to Netflix and then jumped behind the camera, writing and directing a series of short films including the Academy qualifying Play It Again, as well as Liminal, Stuck, and his newest short, Spaceman. And Spaceman is a sci-fi fantasy coming-of-age short film breaking barriers via a deeply human handcrafted story made by fusing old Hollywood techniques with a state-of-the-art cinematic mastery. Now, Spaceman uses mime, stop motion, classic animation, and theatrical elements to explore one's artist's loss of creative passion and his journey to get it back. So let's welcome a writer-director of Spaceman, filmmaker Dan Abramovici to the show. Welcome, Dan.
Oh, hello. Your background is way nicer than my background. First of all, you're putting me to shame. As a film director, I feel like I should have stepped it up a little bit for you. But
Oh, no. Your background's actually better than most of my guests. Now, when it comes to actresses, everything with them has to be absolutely perfect. So no worries. But with directors, they're always in working mode. So I think the background pretty much lines up with that. So it's a good thing.
yeah, we got the spaceman mask over here actually. So we're yeah, so
I love.
we're on.
I love. Where did you get the idea for your short film, Spaceman?
I mean, it originally started off. The idea for it was to make a proof of concept short. I have a feature script that I've written called "Searching for Marceau," which I guess structurally it's a little like a musical, except instead of detours into song and dance, when we enter the character's mind, it's a lot of old Hollywood. It's Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, films like Covergirl, Mime, Circus, Dance, and so I wanted to craft a short film that allowed me to use those sort of tools. Then, as I started to kind of work on the story, I fell in love with the idea of this contained story about an artist who is kind of a weirdo, kind of an outsider, fighting his own imposter syndrome. So, framing it as a sort of Alice through the looking glass, tumbling into this character's subconscious where now the gloves are off and anything can happen. And the one rule was everything we visualize in the film has to have this DIY feel so that we can believe that it's something that this creator could have put together himself or dreamt up anyway.
Yeah, and it comes across that way. And I loved all of the different elements that you created for this film, which all of those elements, like you said, are based on what's going through his mind as well as his subconscious, the voices in his head. But it
Yeah.
was done brilliantly. But I want to kick this off because the very first scene where the mime, the main character, so he's dressed up as a mime and he's sitting there waiting to audition, and he was overcome by fear and doubt. And when I went back to watch it a second time, I really focused on that scene because the fear and the doubt, it's the two killers that have prevented millions of people from ever stepping out in faith and pursuing their dreams. Have you ever felt that way waiting to audition yourself?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I think it's such a crazy being an actor. It's constantly going out on a job interview. Every audition is a job interview, and in a lot of job interviews, at least they'll tell you like, this is why it didn't work. With acting, you don't even, you go, you're on hold, you don't get it, you go, you audition, you don't hear back. It can't help but after a while wear you down. You need to have a lot of support, a lot going on in your life, and have that fortitude to bear through it. Now, take somebody who is doing something that is a little outside the norm to begin with, who in 2024, who's really looking for that. It kind of it was very easy to draw on the feeling in the writing and in the shooting of it to make it like, okay, this is the day where he's had enough. And we all have this imposter syndrome. We all are hiding behind a mask, and I think being in the community of creatives, and you kind of, when you get to a certain level, you think, oh, everybody here knows what they're doing. They're adults. They're on this TV show. They're on this film. They're on their second, third feature, what have you. Surely now they're comfortable. Like, no, in every level, everybody is still freaking out just a little bit. And there's some great comfort, I think, in knowing that we're all just trying our best,
Well,
you
yeah, I
know?
mean, I remember when, Michael Keaton would say early on, he had to change his mindset. So when he went for auditions before the era of self tapes,
Yeah,
he looked at it like, I'm going to work.
right.
I'm going to work. I'm going to do my job. And that's going in with confidence. But then your character in Spaceman has this alter ego that appears.
Yeah,
And right off the bat, the first thing his alter ego tells him, he goes, our doubts are traitors and make us lose the good that we oft might win by fearing to attempt. And
yeah.
I played that over and over again, and I was just like, wow, that is so true, because our thoughts can truly be our mortal enemy.
I mean, so that is, just for anybody who's listening who doesn't know, that's not me being a genius writer. That's Shakespeare. That's a Shakespeare quote. And in that moment, that's our character. We'll just call him Spaceman. Um, his ego coming to life, being manifest to actually tell him the thing that he thinks will be able to cut through the fog and get him back up that couch and pick up that phone and let's try again. Let's try again. Let's try again. Except this time he's not listening.
Yeah, yeah, because I
Um,
loved it when his alter ego tells him, go master your destiny. Immediately, the alter ego is giving him a pep talk, but it's a
yeah.
very strong one. He's not sugarcoating it. He is just like in his face telling him, go master your destiny. But then the spaceman tells him, he goes, but I'm not good enough. And then the journey begins. And I really thought that was kind of, there are people who do affirmations and which are always positive, but then there are those who talk to themselves in a very negative manner. And
Sure.
that's exactly what he did.
Yeah. And I think, those are kind of two sides of the same coin, really. There's the doubt, there's the doubts, which, yeah, I mean, I think Shakespeare said that absolutely perfectly, that it'll paralyze you from taking a chance on yourself. Like, the fear of it will completely obliterate um, your goals. But then there's the people who are, needlessly confident, and it's all the kind of show, and it's that, that side of the Hollywood bubble where, too much confidence and n- not having that kind of low flying anxiety just enough to like try your very best, that could also lead you to ruin. I mean, in that sequence, that's his ego kind of trying all the different tools that have worked before to get him to manifest this and to push him over the threshold. And then we finally get to a situation where he takes over and actually pushes into his subconscious and drags him through, kind of kicking and screaming.
Yeah, and the actor Trevor Kopp, he played this role so well. And the part that I was watching that really got me in his acting is when he enters the spaceship and he's turning the knobs, he's flipping the switches, he's putting on a seatbelt, but it's all mime. And
Yeah.
it's very precise in his movements, which made it so real.
Yeah, it has to be. And that is what initially drew me towards wanting to make this short, is to show how we can non-verbally, just with physicality, in this kind of like dreamy theater space, which is clearly fake. We're not trying to do Star Trek here. Sell the experience of this person traveling up to the heavens. I wanted to see if in 2024 and whenever this feature gets made, um, we can use mime and clown and the stuff that Chaplin and Keaton did so beautifully still as an effective storytelling tool. And so it was very important to have somebody like Trevor, who himself, he's an incredible mime, incredible clown. I found this guy. That sounds so pretend. I discovered him, but I met him at a Fringe show here in Toronto, where he very rightfully won the Audience Choice Award. He was doing this one man show about his life as a clown, as a mime, and talked the audience, which sounds like a contradiction, through this incredible journey that he went on, that had all sorts of amazing physicality in it. And yeah, that precision allows you to see exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, my grandfather was a clown in the
Oh,
circus probably back in the 1940s.
oh, interesting.
And back in the day when there was Emmett Kelly, you know, the most famous sad clown of all time. And so, I really related to this film in multiple ways. From
And
Yeah, go ahead.
well, where was he working? Like, was it across the U.S. or where?
I think it was more up towards the Northeast. It was probably a smaller circus, not necessarily Ringling Brothers,
Sure, sure.
but
Very
when
interesting.
we get when as we were kids, we when we go to my grandparents' house, he had tons of circus books. So you're looking at all of the pictures from the circuses from the 1800s to the early 1900s up to the probably 1950, and to see what was really going on. And so I loved it. I thought it was
Yeah.
a really cool deal. But then you put this in to your film, and I agree with you. I want to see some of these elements as a feature film to pay homage to the ones that really led the way for making movies, because it was Chaplin, it was Buster Keaton. I mean, even when we started getting into the talkies, it was Laurel and Hardy, and then it just exploded from there. But everything about this short film, Spaceman, after I watched it, I kept thinking, this is something that everybody needs to watch,
Right.
because in a way there's an inspiration, a motivation for those that maybe they are losing a bit of their passion in chasing their dream. And I think, well, no pun intended, but because of the spaceship, I think it's going to reignite dreams and passions for those that watch it. But there was something in this film that really made me laugh, because I've heard this time and time again. The line in the film where I believe it was J.K. Simmons was yelling at the
Mhm.
spaceman, "You're too old to be playing around and wasting your life." I have
Sure.
heard those words mostly from those in the music business whose parents told them to go get a real job.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I heard it myself. My folks, and we've talked about this. I'm not speaking out of school, but my parents growing up, they were born in Romania. They're traditional conservative. The idea was, you go get an education, and sure, you can act on the side and do your classes and take your hobbies and all that, but like at some point get serious and provide for a family. And that's a lot of people's reality, and it's hard and it's messy to choose to do something that's sort of outside your culture. and a big thing that I've found critical, we changed the ending. We actually, there's very little VFX in this movie, but the one bit of VFX, it's all practical effects, but the one bit of VFX that we got done that was so critical, and I am spoiling the ending a bit, but the crowd in the last ending, in the ending of the film, we enter his real world and he's performing in front of an audience, and I had it shot in such a way that he finishes, and then he finishes his performance, and then the crowd rises and cheers, and then we get his reaction. And that was completely wrong, because we need him to find his own validation through it, because he's not doing it to show his father that, look, I have a big crowd now, I have a show. Like, the whole journey is about figuring out what success means to you. And if for you being, a street performer, like a busker, is rewarding, then let it be that. If you're doing local theater and that gives you your jollies, let it be that. That's no less valid than being on a big Hollywood movie set, or anything. Like, you have to find your joy in it. And I think with this movie, and it was interesting seeing it in Holly Shorts, in front of a packed house. It's very earnest. It really is a love letter to the arts, and wanting to find a contemporary way to show this sort of performance, and to tell the weirdo in all of us, hey, it's okay, you can nurture this, there is room for it, you don't have to be self-deprecating and ironic about your passions, like, go for it.
Well, yeah,
um
and I'm glad that you didn't have the crowd at the end do a standing ovation, because for everyone out there that's a creative, I don't care if it's a filmmaker, an actor, maybe they're an editor, whatever. They're most of the time, it's just you.
yeah.
There's nobody else. And for him to stand there at the end, he's thinking, and he's like, this is why I enjoy this so much.
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm doing research on guests and I'm writing up the interview scripts and coming up with the questions, I sit there and there are days where I'm like, I don't want to do nothing else.
Mm.
This is the greatest opportunity in the world. And sometimes when you're not in front of the camera, that's where your love is. That's
Right.
why you love it so much. And then you go and you do the work. It's just like an actor. You're doing the lines. You're trying to create this character to come to life. So when the cameras roll, it's captured.
Hmm.
And but there was something I was looking at into this film when he put his space helmet on.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
not in the pretend part,
Oh,
the
okay.
part where he was actually putting on the physical helmet.
Sure.
And then you have the film to where you have this music, and then all of a sudden you can see that dust in the light.
Hmm.
And I thought, right then and there, that's where most creatives spend their time. They're by themselves, and the only thing that will encourage them is their own thoughts. And by
Yeah.
having a space helmet on, it's only you and your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, that was very well said. It's we kind I kind of wanted to physicalize the space helmet as sort of, you know, it's protection. It stops the voices in your head from telling you not to do the thing you need to do. It's being able to find that quiet. Um, and I think in what really helped with that is we had some incredible composers working on this film, where we went, you know, full Hans Zimmer to build and build and build this chaos up until the point where he's really ready to face himself. And then it was very interesting to experiment with how we could live in that silence. And I'll tell you, I've never had a more stressful, not stressful, but in when we were at the Chinese theater in Hollywood, you know, you can hear a pin drop, and I was so, because I'm sitting at the back, and like, are people gonna get up? Am I gonna hear whispering to each other? And it was so rewarding to be in an audience where that silence felt earned, that was really, really nice. Yeah.
I love
Anyway.
that because of the fact that when he put the helmet on, and I interpret it as, now you're alone with your thoughts. It is
Yeah.
you, your thought. You have the helmet now blocks out all the outside voices,
Right.
but also being in space, there's no distractions in
Right.
space. You're more in awe, which means you're more focused with what is around you. So he becomes more focused with himself, his thoughts, and his talent. So
Yep.
I think a lot of us need that are creative. We need to find our own space of solitude, to search ourselves, to reignite our passions, because that silence, it'll help us to be, well, to be better.
Yeah, and it's hard, especially in today's culture where anytime that there is a moment of silence, people are on their phones. Like we have so many distractions. It's so easy. It's so easy to not have to sit in that silence and in that doubt and in that sadness, to just scroll through something or put something on, and it wears on you after a while, especially as an artist, and especially as trying someone who's trying to push outside of their comfort zone. Like David Bowie has that great quote of, you're only making something special when you can barely feel your feet on the ground, like you're walking into the deep end of the pool and just your toes are touching. It's an uncomfortable space to be in. And if you don't allow yourself to be uncomfortable, you're not going to push through. Um,
Yeah, you're not going to grow.
you're not going to grow. And in that moment too, where he's looking out into space, I was reading interviews with astronauts, and something that came up over and over again is, these incredible people that would go up into space and they'd look through the glass and they'd see, the little blue marble off in the distance. It really puts things in perspective. We're all together. We're all pretty small. And
Yeah.
why get distracted by nonsense when life is so short and so fleeting? Yeah.
Well, I think with, on Instagram, one of the biggest jokes with screenwriters is, let me sit down and start writing, but let me check all my social media accounts first. So it's all of the distractions.
Oh yeah, and same for me. It's horrible. Yeah, I have an app on my phone that locks it up. Like I lock up my phone. I need that because, gosh, when you're staring at that page and you're stuck, and or you just erase the last scene you wrote and that took you an entire day to put together, like, oh, man, all you want to do is watch cats doing funny things on YouTube or
Oh yeah, yeah. No,
yeah,
I completely agree. But I want
uh,
to talk about your multiple uses of different types of cinematography techniques. You
sure.
use animation, stop
Mhm.
motion, video. Whose idea was to do all these different ones, to put into this one short film?
That was important to me. I Again, it goes back to Searching for Marceau, the feature, because that is a much longer journey for a character who's quite different than Spaceman. It's a very different story, but not unlike Spaceman. He too has an interest in, you know, classic Hollywood and movement and all that kind of stuff. He doesn't want to be a mime per se, but there is this kind of search for something greater, hence the title. And in that film, we kind of delve into the character's mind and explore it through kind of anything from Baz Luhrmann-esque theatrics to animation, stop motion, all that. And so I wanted to make a short film that showcased these different cinematic languages. And also selfishly, I was a bit like a kid in a candy store, and knowing that I had permission to do this because I've set up a situation where we can use it, I was like, let's see. So we did a few tests, and yeah, I think the biggest thing that I walked away from with this is that we're able to blend these kind of disparate languages and keep enough of a through line visually and tonally that they even in their own weird way, sort of gel together. So
And
yeah, that
they
was a lot of
do. They do. They gel very well together. And that was one of the things I was noticing because I kept replaying it so I could watch all the different techniques. I think I kind of lost count
fun.
because I know there was at least 4 or 5 completely different cinematic techniques in this film. And like you said, it all went back to what, his imagination and what was in his head, and it
Yeah.
worked so well. Even when he was using his hand as
Mhm.
the spaceman, I was like, how many of us have ever done that?
Yeah. That was me as a kid when I was bored. I'd, have my hands do like wrestling matches or whatever. But and that's also something that Trevor does in his show is he physicalizes his character with his whole body, but then he can just drop in and use his hand or use like a puppet or something, and just with like a little shift of light and some shadow and like a musical cue, you as an audience member totally buy in. Like, okay, this was him, and now it's this, and it's such a fun thing to play with that I just don't see all that much of. And I thought if I can, yeah, and that's also all the credits to our cinematographer Ian McMillan, who I've worked with on a few projects now, and he's able to also shape light and make you believe that these things can kind of carry over and transform from moment to moment. And a big key of that is, when we go into animation, it was important to still see the very DIY cardboard cutout of like a bus that had carried over from previous. And then when he's in the shuttle, we're seeing these projections behind him through the windows, but at no point do we hide that the shuttle is, again, cardboard and plywood and some plastic. Like, it needs to feel that way so that you can kind of jump through.
Well, yeah, even when he was doing his hand motions, and there's the spotlight, there
Yeah.
was a little bit of I guess a little bit of vaudeville feel
Yeah.
to that because you're so focused on what he's doing with his hand because you've brought the light and you've blacked out everything else around him, which signifies space.
Sure. Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
all works. But for you, how did you come to cast such top tier talent for this short film?
Yeah. So, I mean, the idea started with Trevor because I saw his one man show at Fringe and was like, "There's for sure something here that I want to turn into this feature script." So there was at no point where we was I looking at anybody else but him to play this character in the short film. And then, honestly, we have a really good team. Our producer had a relationship with Mina Masood, was able to. It was nice because it's not a huge ask to ask somebody to just do the VO. It's not like we needed these folks like J.K. Simmons or Mina to come on set for days on end. So we were able to get Mina, and then because we had Mina, and because I had another film that had done well on the festival circuit called Liminal, we were able to kind of package the rough cut of Spaceman and Liminal, uh, and go to Gersh, and that way we were able to get access to J.K. Simmons, who didn't have to do a short film, didn't have to do VO for my weird little, was incredibly generous for doing that. And yeah, I mean, one of the great thrills in my professional life has been able to, get MP3s from J.K. Simmons doing all the dialogue, and then to ask for some redirects because I needed this scene to be like this and that one like that, and he was game, despite being an Academy Award winning movie star. That was very very cool, and I very very much hope to be able to work with him again.
Yeah, he is such an incredible actor. I mean, I loved Whiplash.
That's one of my favorite all time movies. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that is I cannot even imagine what space he had to get into to create that character.
Sure. Yeah, I mean it's absolutely incredible. And so with the feature, with Searching for Marceau, we're hoping to deepen the themes of the short, build up the language in the world, and get to work with some amazing on-camera talent.
Yeah, I looked and back on that ending
Hmm.
when I watched it a few times because it is just done so beautifully.
Thank you.
Um, I think that everyone who watches this film needs to remember that when you're chasing your dream, to be consistent, getting from A to B is never going to be a straight line.
Hmm.
But that ending showed me that we should always remember the small beginnings, stay true to ourselves, be consistent, which will end up leading to bigger, brighter opportunities. And that's how I read the ending.
I think you're spot on. Um, yeah, I think you're spot on. The only thing I'd say is, yeah, like find your own joy in what you're doing. If you don't need other people for validation, you're a happy little human, you know?
Well, now I understand that you have some extra news about this.
And so now we're putting together the team for the feature, and looking to raise the funds necessary to shoot this thing.
Well, I
Yeah,
can't wait to see this as a full feature film because I can imagine as much how much what was involved with the short film
a
to
lot.
see
Yeah.
how this is going to come out as a feature. And I mean, this is where the artistry, this is where the art of filmmaking comes into play with films like this one, when you're using so many different techniques that I mean, it's. I think in the end, even though you haven't shot the feature yet, I think I can pretty much say it's going to be a work of art when it's done.
Thanks. I hope so. I hope so. We're putting a lot of energy into it, so I'm excited. It
Now,
can't just be Landry and Boz Lerman doing these things, you know. I there's plenty of room in the sandbox, so I'm excited.
yeah, now
Can't wait.
for you, I mean, you starred in Sofia Coppola's Priscilla. You were in FX's Jane and even Star Trek Discovery. Uh, any new work coming up for you in front of the camera?
No, not right now. I'm definitely putting more of my focus in writing and directing at the moment. But obviously, if a great part comes along and I'm lucky enough to play to get the offer, I'm not going to say no. I love acting. Um, I don't love the lack of control that it. You know, you're paint on a canvas, and it's great. And sometimes you get incredibly lucky, and you get to work with an amazing artist like Sofia Coppola. Amazing, and very grateful for that. And that was a wonderful experience. But you know, a lot of times it's not that. So I think right now I'd rather try to put the energy towards telling the best stories that I can. Um, and I think as a writer and a director, I have a bit more control over, quality control.
Which directors out there do you kind of lean towards to, I guess, emulate?
I mean, I love big spectacle films by people like Damien Chazelle, Whiplash, like you said, and Baz Luhrmann's Moulin Rouge. But I also really love filmmakers like Celine Sciamma, the French filmmaker who did Portrait of a Lady on Fire and Petit Maman, and I love Hayao Miyazaki. I guess I lean to what I want to do with Searching for Marceau is this kind of combination of the fantastic and transporting the audience into another world that is familiar and fresh, but also grounded somewhere very real and relatable. You know, and I think somewhere there's a Venn diagram of Hayao Miyazaki and Michel Gondry and Baz Luhrmann and Celine Sciamma uh, and Taika Waititi. And if I can live somewhere in the middle of that Venn diagram, but you shoot for the stars and maybe you land on the moon or a friendly satellite, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, because when I saw the Elvis movie
Hmm.
by Baz, all I could say was wow, because his technique was transporting us from the present to the past and back again, and it was an emotional journey, and not everybody can do that.
No, no, and it's fun to try to do that, but also show some respect to all the folks that came before, and not just make it a homage, but bring that art form to where we are today and see, think if these folks like Chaplin were around now, like what would they make and how would they film what they were doing then. Back then we had these huge cameras and they had to have a locked off wide because man, that thing weighed a ton. But now what would they do to explore movement and explore what they're doing? And I find that that's a fun challenge.
Yeah, I know Hollywood is not into big risk anymore. They're trying to find the sure thing every weekend. But I would love to see someone have the guts enough to make a full length feature film, a silent film,
Mm,
and really bring back that art so for today's generation can understand where the whole birth of cinema came from and
sure.
why acting is a true art form, and to appreciate it even more. I mean, because that way you stripped away the special effects. You stripped away everything else, and it is the actor with no sound bringing a character to life. And if they want to shoot it in black and white, they can do that too. So,
That's Yeah, it's hard. I mean, the industry side of things is definitely the business of it is tough to do something that's a bit outside of the box and get the funding for it. Like that's what's tough. That's where you get, Coppola's Megalopolis. He funded it himself.
yeah.
But I think people supporting a short film like Spaceman and festivals supporting it, and folks like you taking the time to interview filmmakers who do films that are a little bit outside, that's helpful. That does help because now when I'm trying to put together Searching for Marceau, being able to point to the successes, to view numbers of the short film, that it got into X, Y, and Z festival, that we did these interviews, it shows financiers that, look, there is some interest in this and there is a hunger for something that is more niche and speaks to an audience that might be small, but they're mighty and they're excited to try something new.
Yeah, and there is power in the short film, and I am predicting that probably within 3 years the short film will have the weight of a feature film because of people's attention spans are shorter than ever.
Mm,
But the beauty and the power of a short film, you can tell a big story in a short amount of time, and you can reach down inside of people's emotions, and they'll be able to see it, they'll be able to feel it. And again, I'm a huge supporter and lover of the short film. And ladies and gentlemen, Spaceman. This is a sci-fi fantasy, a coming of age film breaking barriers via a deeply human handcrafted story, made again by fusing the old Hollywood techniques with state-of-the-art cinematic mastery. Now, Spaceman again uses mime, stop motion, classic animation, and theatrical elements to explore the character, this one artist's loss of creative passion. How many of us have had that loss of creative passion and then we had to go on our own journey to get it back? But this film is an exploration of identity, artistic passion, and the fragile nature of human connection. It weaves themes of self-discovery, mental health, and again, the pursuit of dreams. This is a great film for everyone who may be going through some fear, self-doubt, loss of passion, and wondering what in the world your purpose truly is. Well, strap on your space helmet and find out. Dan, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your great film with us today.
Thank you very much. It was nice chatting with you. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for watching. You'll either see me at the movies or from the red carpet.